What's going on, guys? This is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, with the housing market being as insane and competitive as it's been the last 6 to 12 months in the greater Boston area, we've had a lot of our clients, many of you guys that are watching these videos, decide to go after homes that are still under construction. Now, this is, I think, is a great approach, right? Because you can basically get an offer accepted while a brand new home is still being built or renovated, right? So what I thought I would do, just because I've seen the same questions kind of being posed over and over again, what I thought I would do is kind of give a pretty thorough pros and cons list of things you need to think about if you're gonna go after a house that is still under construction and try to get your offer accepted on that. So with that, let's get at it. What's going on, guys? My name is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, two super quick things, guys. Number one, if this is your first time on my channel, first of all, welcome. Second of all, make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. I'm putting out tons of new videos every single week talking about Boston, the housing, the lifestyle, everything you need to know about Boston. It's all gonna be in here. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. And number two, guys, if you're thinking about doing anything, absolutely anything with housing around the greater Boston area, I've had so many of you guys reach out to me. Literally, I still get just mesmerized, right? It's like insane. I love it, right? So, a lot of you guys reach out to us. So if you're thinking about doing anything with real estate around the greater Boston area, hit up me and my team, and we will definitely help you out, get your questions answered, and make sure you're making the right move for yourself. Now, with that being said, let's get right into the pros and cons list that I talked about. So again, the scenario is if you're potentially house hunting, right, you might see some properties that are listed on the market that are still under construction, or if you've got an all-star broker, I wonder who, right, that potentially gets you, homes that are not even on the market, that knows are being built, right, you may have the chance of getting an offer accepted while the home is under construction. Now, that's certainly fantastic, but as I said, there's a number of pros and certain cons that you need to be thinking about if you're gonna go down this path. So let's start with pro number one. And pro number one is, as I kind of alluded to, sometimes you can actually find some of these homes while they're still not on the market, depending on the strengths of your broker's network, right? And here's what I mean. If you guys have been shopping or if you heard anything about the real estate market, you know it's been absolutely bananas, like literally bananas, right? Like homes are flying off the shelf, like you can't even wink. Open houses have literally 50 to 100 showings in a weekend. Like, it's insane how competitive the market's been, right? So if your broker is good, they might know some homes that are being built in the areas you're looking at with, through builders that have not put their homes on the market yet, right? And a lot of the times these builders may be open to offers, right? Because for them, it's kind of it's kind of certainty, right? They already have a buyer lined up, and basically as soon as they finish that construction process, instead of having then to list the property and go through the whole process, they can basically close as soon as it's done, right? So it can be a very nice win-win situation for both the builder as well as for yourself, right? Because if you're getting it off market, as we call it, you can avoid a lot of that heavy competition that brand new product, whether it's single families or condos, can often have in the Boston area. Pro number two about buying a home under construction is, depending on the stage of the construction, you might have some final say in terms of some aspects of customization. So again, depending on the stage of construction, I've seen some of my buyers be able to choose stuff like paint, tiles, some fixtures, some hardware, right? A lot of the builders typically can be somewhat flexible with that and kind of work with you to kind of put the nice finishing touches that you want on the final product. Now, you can certainly get crazier than that. I mean, I've seen instances in the past where people have really ultra customized their homes. I will say that process gets a little bit more complicated, but it's certainly doable. But at a base level, those things I mentioned, again, like the paints, tiles, hardwood floor stains, hardware fixture, stuff like that could definitely be worked in with a builder. They'll typically accommodate your wishes and kind of what you want to see on that end product. And pro number three for you as a buyer, you can really line up the transactional process to really coincide with the construction process of the builder, right? So what I mean by that is a lot of times when we put these deals under contract where they're still pre-construction, right? There's typically, most transactions need about 20 to 30 days for the bank to do its thing. Then you're also gonna have to do your inspections and everything, right? So usually, depending again on the exact stage of construction we go under contract in, all of that stuff can happen as the home is going through construction, right? So your bank can go through the loan, work everything it needs to. Then once the builder's done, you can kind of do your inspection, make sure everything looks good, work with the builder to do the finishing touches, and then literally as soon as it's all done, you're ready to close and there's no further delay, right? So there can be some really nice transactional benefits in terms of timelines when doing these kinds of purchases. Now, let's talk about a couple of the cons, because there certainly are some cons in this process. And con number one that you definitely need to be aware of is delays, right? I mean, if you guys have ever done anything with construction yourselves, if you ever hired a contractor, but especially in the context of today where we have insane labor shortage, we have major global supply chain issues, right? Delays are very common, especially in the construction world, right? So what that means to you as the buyer is that you're just gonna have to be a little bit more flexible than typical in terms of your timeline, right? So if, for example, the builder told you, hey, we're probably gonna be closing sometime in, let's say, April, right? You might just need to give maybe a 2 to 3, maybe even 4 week buffer on that timeline, just because, again, there's just so many delays with everything. I didn't even mention delays with the city, right? Because obviously the city can delay projects. So you just are gonna have to have a little bit more flexibility and kind of be a little bit more mobile if you're gonna go after this transaction. And con number two that I thought I would mention here is, again, depending on the exact stage of construction, you're gonna, as a buyer, you're gonna have to have a little bit more of a creative vision for a home than, your typical home buyer. And, this is probably more relevant if you're buying a home in the earlier stages of construction, right? Because I've sold a number of homes last year that, we put an offer in when the builder was just finishing up only just framing, right? So basically you just kind of had like a shell of a house with the frames in, but none of the walls were up, none of the roof was in, right? So as a buyer, you might just have to get a little bit more, creative with how you envision a home, right? Because obviously those buyers that are putting those homes under contract can kind of have a vision of like, hey, this is what it's gonna look like, this is what it's gonna feel like, and I'm comfortable with that, right? Not every buyer can do this, and not every buyer is comfortable with this, which is totally fine, right? Everyone's got their own cup of tea. But if you're gonna go after something like this, you will need to be a little bit more comfortable. Sometimes a builder will provide things like renderings, which can certainly help. But at the end of the day, you're just gonna have to be kind of comfortable envisioning the space for what it will be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months, whatever that construction timeline is. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. If you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments below.